Welcome to In the Arena of Success. This podcast is where courage meets opportunity. I'm your host, Henry Beeman, and every week we step into the arena with visionaries, innovators, and trailblazers from all walks of life. We dive deep into the heart of success and uncover the strategies, the struggles, and the unwavering spirit of those who overcome. The real question is, are you willing to step into the arena and fight for your success? Because in this arena, success is not a destination. It's a journey, and it starts right now. All right, today joining me on the podcast is the Steve Rizzo, the Attitude Adjuster. And Steve has an incredible background, a history in comedy, has toured on the comedy circuit worldwide, and has moved into corporate speaking, attitude work, and consulting author. He just wrote a book called Conversations with Bob that I'm super excited to talk about today. Steve, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Henry. It's good to be here.
So I start this podcast with the same 6 questions for everybody. And The first one of those is, where's your hometown and what is it known for?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but I was raised on Long Island in a place called West Babylon, Long Island. And I was in a neighborhood where everyone on the block was Italian and from Brooklyn. It was really strange. We had Bonamolo, we had Parascandola, we had Pepe, we had Rizzo. They were all lined up. It was like the mafia was living on my block, and which is why there weren't any problems on my block. But I think the cool thing about being raised there is that on weekends, we would go back to see family, grandparents in Brooklyn. So I had the street smarts of being a tough guy in Brooklyn. But when we moved to West Babylon, it was rural then. It was in 1957. There was farmland. There was a woods in back of us. I had a tree house that my friends and I built. It was a 3-story tree house. It was insane. So I had the best of both worlds. At one point, the part of me was like, it was Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer growing up in the country, and then on the weekends I was Tony Soprano. It was a great contrast. Actually, it made me appreciate both aspects of life. And, it was one of those fortunate things. And I don't know if anyone ever looks at where they're from and how much of an impact where you were raised. And I'm not just talking about how your parents raised you or family stuff. I'm talking about the environment. I wonder if people realize the impact, and not the negative, the positive impact that your upbringing gave you, the lessons that really, the hardcore lessons that you learned. Every time I go back, I always have a smile on my face and the things that I did. We played baseball, we played football, we built tree houses, and we had a blast.
That's cool. It sounds like you had the best of both worlds there. And
I did.
Not too far apart.
I really did. And the thing is, it taught me not to take any crap from people. That was the Brooklyn side of me. You needed to be, on guard a great part of your life when you're born in Brooklyn. And I learned both.
Yeah, the other thing Brooklyn's known for is its clean Puritan language.
Yeah, they don't pull any punches. And they always repeat what they say, people from Brooklyn. If they would come up to you, they go, "Hey, Henry, how you doing, Henry?" They always repeat your name. "Hey, Henry, that's a nice shirt. That's a nice shirt you have there." "Hey, where you going?" "I'm going over to my mother's house. I'm going to go over to my mother's house." I don't know why they repeat themselves, but they do. Yeah. And they say stupid things like, "Hey, not for nothing." I never knew what that meant. I never knew what that, not for nothing, makes no sense at all.
But it's still used to this day.
Absolutely. So forget about it.
That's right. Forget about it.
"Hey, Joe, did you have a good time last night?" "Forget about it." Most people would think forget about it, that they don't want to talk about it. No, forget about it means, whoa, it was unbelievable, and then they'll go into full detail. Oh, it's just too funny.
So changing gears here, do you prefer cats or dogs?
Dogs. I love these questions. These are cool. Dogs, definitely. I was married for 35 years and 34 years divorced for 7 years now. My wife was the manager of the Riverhead dog shelter. She used to rescue dogs, and my house out east on Long Island in Wading River, I lived there for 20 some odd years. We had 2.5 acres of land, so we always had 4 labs. Always had 4 big dogs. And it's really nature out there. There were fox, there were gophers, deer, and we had this huge property. We had a greenhouse. We always had these dogs, and we even had a burial ground because as they got older, we put them down, and we had like 6 dog burials, and we would mourn every now and then. My wife and I would go out there. But dogs, man, dog spells backward is God, and there's a reason for that.
Ooh.
Because they feel your joy, they feel your pain. And there were times, Henry, when I would be in my office on the 3rd floor, and I would be in a really low mood. Now, my dogs are well trained. My wife still is a brilliant dog trainer. And I would be like this in my room, and all 4 dogs are in the doorway, like this, because they know not to come into the room unless I tell them it's okay. And then I would look at them. They could sense my pain, is what I'm saying. And then I would look at them. I'd get off the chair, I'd lay down on the floor, and I would go, all right, come on in. And they'd all be all over me and kissing me. And it took me right out of my depression or whatever it was that I was in. And to be honest with you, I've been divorced now for 8 years or whatever. I miss having a dog, and I can't have one because I travel a lot.
The way you travel,
and it's not fair to leave your dog with someone else all the time like that. So, someday if I ever meet someone, maybe I'll have a dog. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But even when I walk on my area and I see somebody walking their dog, I always go up to them and pet the dog. And they all love me. Dogs love me. I mean, what's not to love?
What's not to love?
So, yeah, really.
My Aussie Doodle's laying on the floor right here beside me now. He's about 8 months old. He's a little pup that we've got, and I've been training and working with him, and he's a shadow. He's a companion for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, they are your best friend. They are.
That's it. So what are you listening to right now? What kind of music?
Lately, I've been turned on to Joe Bonamassa. You ever hear him?
Oh, yes.
He's
Incredible
the
guitarist.
best blues player on the planet. And I go to the gym. I work out every day. The gym's right across the street. And as soon as I walk in, they play Joe Bonamassa. And people always go up to the person behind the desk and go, who is this guy singing? And she would tell them, this is Steve Rizzo music. This guy's name is Joe Bonamassa. And every time somebody will go home, put him on YouTube or play him on Alexa or whatever, and they all come up to me saying, that is the greatest music I've ever heard. This guy is brilliant. Brilliant. He owns his own cruise line now. He performs on cruises. It's a 24-hour cruise performance. 24 hours. And if he's taking a rest, he has another blues band playing on 3 different decks. It's insane. The guy's insane. He started when he was 12. He was performing with Eric Clapton when he was 12 years old. Now, having said that, my favorite music, though, is Beatle music. I'm a huge Beatle fan. Huge.
Which is your
Huge
favorite
Beatle
album?
My favorite Beatle album?
Album, yep.
Oh, that's so hard. I would have to say the double album.
Oh,
the White Album.
Okay. Yep, the White Album.
You know why? Because they showed their diversity there. There was all kinds of music there. Everything from I Will to Helter Skelter. I mean, come on, that's a jump.
That's a huge jump.
It's sheer brilliance. And I hear young kids today, young people say, Beatles were overrated. I want to hit them. And these are musicians saying it, young kids that think they know everything. If you think the Beatles are overrated, you shouldn't call yourself a musician because you know nothing about music. Nothing. There's rock and roll, there's blues, there's disco, there's country. You could keep going, and then there's Beatle music.
The Beatles.
And every group will tell you that. Every group will tell you that. No one could ever even come close to what the Beatles did.
Yeah, they have such a wide range of music, and when I listen to the White Album is my favorite, and you just have to listen to it in the order that it was put on the album. This idea of shuffle and listening to songs mixed all up. They put them in an order for a reason. And when you listen to it
Yeah.
and the way that it was meant to be listened to, it's just incredible.
And that's so well said. And it takes you could be in a mood like this, and then all of a sudden you're hearing, like I said, who knows how long I loved you. And then your mood immediately shifts from rocking out to, oh, okay. And then you hear Blackbird,
Right.
you know? And then you'll hear, oh, God, Me and My Monkey, you know? Come on, come on, come on. Come on. How do they do that? How do you do that?
It's
And
just
then you hear
incredible.
that stupid thing they created, number 9, number 9, number 9. Remember that? Revolution number 9? Now, if you were doing acid, that would sound brilliant. And I'm sure they were when they did that.
Maybe that's the context that we're missing.
Yeah. Well, you know what they did, Henry, is that they stopped touring, as you know, but they stayed in the studio for 8 years. No group has ever done that. For 8 years, every day they were recording. Do you know that's why they broke up? People say, why did they break up? You have to. You're in a confined room with people for 8 years, recording, taking a break, going over to the bar, to the pub a couple of blocks away, having a couple of beers, then going back, relaxing, going for walks, maybe going on a slight vacation, but you came back together. Eventually, it's like a marriage. You're going to get on each other's nerves.
So shifting gears again, another genre here. What are you currently reading?
I just read a book from someone that's very, 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 very dear to me called Altered. And it's about a woman's trials and tribulations and how God was with her along the way, every step. Now, Henry, you've heard me speak. You know I know a lot of people. I don't know of anyone that experienced and went through what this woman went through and prevailed and thrived. It's the only book that I ever read where I had to read 2 chapters and I had to sit down and cry. Then I had to read a few more chapters. It's the only book that I ever read where I'm reading it again for the 4th time.
Wow.
And as you're reading it, you're saying, excuse my language, but what the fuck else is this woman going to tell me she went through? And before you know it, she's telling you. Amazing.
Wow.
It's called Altered.
Altered.
By Kimberly Stevens.
Altered by Kimberly Stevens. That is, has to be a powerful message of resilience.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
On that note, who is your biggest inspiration in life?
Well, Kimberly Stevens is right up there. But the one that made the biggest difference, because I've known him my whole life, was my brother Michael. You've heard that story. Mm-hmm. You know, he was 100% disabled from the Vietnam War. He recently passed away 2 years ago, Christmas Eve. And he did more than survive. He thrived. The only man in medical history that ever survived the wound that he endured. He's in medical journals as someone who beat the odds. He went from 168 pounds to 94 pounds. They gave him up. They said for dead. They didn't think he'd be able to make it. But I'm not going to tell the whole story here. But what he did and how he turned his life around falls nothing short of miraculous. And he's the reason I do what I do today. He's the reason why I went to college. And that wasn't easy for me. I think you know I was voted least likely to succeed in my senior class in high school. I know, I laugh at that shit now. I was told by a guidance counselor at 14 years old in front of my mom and dad I didn't have what it takes to go to college. So I'll just tell you this one brief story because you never heard this. When my brother got out of the hospital, St. Albans Naval Hospital in Queens, New York, he was 107 pounds. Very frail. He said he was going to go to college, and we didn't think he'd be able to do it, primarily because he wasn't Mr. Whiz Kid in high school. He did go, and he graduated with high honors. He graduated with degrees in education, history, psychology, administration, went back to the same school that he graduated from. And he became a history teacher, then assistant principal, then principal. When he wanted to retire, they wouldn't let him. They made him superintendent of the Italian school system. Wow. But here's my point. When he was going to college, this was This happened about 6 years after high school. He noticed that my life wasn't going well and I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. Most of my friends now, Henry, are either dead or they're in prison. And I'm not exaggerating. And my brother said to me, he goes, listen, I want you to do me a favor. He goes, I want you to come to school with me. I said, what? I want you to come to college with me. Just sit in my classes with me. Just hang. I could use your company. And I thought nothing of it. I said, yeah, all right. He goes, yeah, just do me that favor. For 2 weeks, I sat in all of his classes. The end of the second week, I noticed we're walking to the administration building. I said, why are we going here? He put his arm around me and he said, because I'm signing you up for college. And I panicked. Henry, I panicked. I had tears in my eyes. I mean, I said, no, because being voted least likely to succeed came to the forefront. The guidance counselor telling me I'm not smart enough. I said, Michael, I can't do this. There's no way of doing it. In front of all these people walking around, he grabbed me by my shoulders. He goes, you listen to me. He goes, you're going to try it. I'm signing you up. You can do it. He said, look at me. I'm 104 pounds. I was given up for dead. If I can do this, you can do it. I'm asking you to give it a try. Wow. He signed me up for 4 classes: art, world history, English 101, and music. 4 easy, 12 credits, okay? I was petrified. After the second week, I got into this groove. And I realized I had these professors, fortunately enough, that would have class discussions. Now, because I was experienced, I already had 6 years of what it's like in the world, and hanging out with the crowd that I hung out with, I learned a lot of shit. So my interjection with the conversation was very surprising for these kids that were sitting around me. Professors took hold of that. 2 of them I became very close to. I would go to their office. They had office hours. I got to be friends with them. And before you know it, my confidence just started boosting. I went to the next semester. That was a community college I went to, Suffolk Community College on Long Island. I graduated with high honors with a 3.87. I had to go tutoring. I needed a lot of work. And then I went to Long Island University, CW Post, one of the most expensive colleges on the planet. And when I signed up for it, I had no idea. They looked at my records because the credits were transferable. They paid for more than half my credits because of my average. And everything started skyrocketing. Then I went for my master's degree at CW Post for theater arts. Had no idea where I was going to do it. I took an acting for non-majors class. The acting coach said to me, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but if you don't get into the world of entertainment, you'll be screwing yourself. So I went out for one of the plays. I'm looking at my room right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8x10 photos of me on my off-Broadway plays. I got my master's in theater arts at CW Post College. They paid for my entire master's. They gave me a room. They built a room in the theater for me to live in.
Wow.
Right? All this happened to me. All these things just happened to me, all because my brother told me what I could do when I said I couldn't.
Right.
And as you know, then I went into the world of stand-up comedy. And by the way, I was a teacher. I went back to the same school that I graduated from, where I was voted least likely to succeed, where a guidance counselor told me I wasn't smart enough to go to college. And I was an English teacher for 2 years and a counselor for kids with behavioral problems at that same school, proving once and for all that guidance counselors are not fortune tellers. Right. And the coolest thing, Henry, my first year teaching there, that guidance counselor was still there. It was his last year. And I went into his office. I sat down. I said, you probably don't remember me, but I remember what you said to me. You said to my mother and father, and I didn't know he was going to get upset. I was trying to tell them that I am successful in spite of what he said.
Right.
I said, you told me in front of my mom and dad, and we all believed you, that I didn't have what it takes to go to college. I never told you that. And he stands up. Who were you to tell me that? And I said, well, you did tell me that. I said, but I graduated a 3.87 at CW Post College. I got a master's in theater arts. I said, now I'm teaching at the school that you're teaching at. And he told me to get out of his office. And before I left, I looked, and maybe I shouldn't have said this. I said, you know what really concerns me? I said, I was able to jump that hurdle. How many students did you say didn't have what it takes and listen to you, and their lives turned out that way? That's what I want to know. And I walked out. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I said it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that hits very key into what your message is all about. There's a lot of times in the world where it's telling us, no, we can't, or we encounter hardship and difficulties and have to find the ability to push beyond that and overcome that hurdle.
Well, yeah, if you say you can't, you won't, because the I can't will always come up with excuses as to why you can't. You got to figure out why your life isn't working. It's not working because of you. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do about what happens. You know, you're responsible. You're responsible for your life. That's one thing. That's my second principle that I live by. You need to know that you're the only problem you will ever have, and somewhere within you there's a solution waiting to be discovered.
Ooh.
And I had a woman jump up in one of my workshops years ago, really emotionally distraught. I don't understand what that means. What do you mean I'm the problem? And I'm like, explain yourself. She said, 20 years ago, I was hit by a car. Another thing I was saying before that, I said, for every choice that you make, whether it's made consciously or unconsciously, there is always a consequence. Always. And it's not a matter of right or wrong, or fair or unfair, good or bad. There's always a consequence. You got to understand that. Every choice that you have, every choice that you make, and I let people know where you are at this point in your life is based on the choices that you made at some point in the past. And then I went on to say, you're the only problem you will ever have throughout your life, and somewhere within you there's a solution. So she couldn't understand that. She said, so I was hit by a car by a drunk driver, and it took away my dancing career because she walked with a limp and there's no way she could dance. So she said, how is that my fault? I said, it's not your fault. I said, but if you're going on the rest of your life playing the victim, that's your fault. How can you say that? It's his fault. He's the one that hit me. He's the one with the problem. I said, is this person that hit you still bothering me? Yes. Is it keeping you from the enjoyment that you want in your life? She said, yes. I said, then wouldn't you admit that you have a problem? She didn't know what to say. She just broke down and started crying. And I waited until she stopped crying. She said, oh my God, you're right. It is my problem. I said, that guy that hit you has his own problem to deal with now. He's an alcoholic. He hit you. He's got to live with that. He went to jail. He went to prison. That's his problem.
Right.
But she said, can you explain to me why it was my choice that it happened? I said, it wasn't your choice that it happened, but didn't you choose to live in that neighborhood? And she said, yes. Didn't you choose to step off the curb to go across the street at that moment in time? She said, yes, but I didn't it has nothing to do with conscious or unconscious. You made the choice. You lived there. Unfortunately, you got hit by a car. Again, and that's the important thing that people need to know. It's not about right or wrong, fair or unfair. Life is unfair. Right. Life is filled with shit. It's about choices. One of the things my brother Michael said to me that blew me away about choices, it was about 3 days before he passed away. I said, what is it? How is it? And I thought he was going to get pissed off at me. I said, you were in a war that we never should have been in. Everyone knows that. You were gung-ho. You believed in your country. You still do believe in your country. And you did the thing that you thought was right. And he said, and I still think it was right. I said, you're 100% disabled in that war. How could you think it was the right decision when everyone admitted we shouldn't have been in the war? He goes, that's probably the best question you ever asked me, and it took me time to figure it out, but here's the answer. Sometimes you make a choice in your life, and you have no idea what the future is going to say to you as a result of that choice. The only thing that you could live on when life turns around and proves that it wasn't the right decision, was it the right decision at that moment in time? He said, Steve, I'm not a fortune teller. I didn't have a crystal ball. Had I been able to see in a crystal ball what was going to happen, I probably would have made a different decision. But my heart, at that moment in time, I believed my country needed me, and I made the choice. And when I came to the realization that it was my choice, I refused to blame my country. I refused to blame anyone else. I took full responsibility. And from that moment, I realized how powerful choices are. And I focused on what was working rather than fixating what was no longer working. I blessed the things that life has given me rather than cursing what life currently threw at me. And he goes, that all only falls into play when you are strong enough to admit that it was your choice and it's your responsibility. And that just blew me away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's absolutely powerful. And to think of his story and all the struggle and things that he went through because of his injuries, and to stand there with the resolve to say it was my choice. And that's really powerful for folks to realize, is that the world's not out to get you. The world is full of good and bad things, and guess what? You're going to get served up a plate of both. And it's not, oh, God's out to smite me. I'm getting all these bad things happening right now. Take yourself out of that victim mentality. It's like, okay, this is what's coming right now. What can I learn from it? What can I be positive about right now in this moment? So one of your
absolutely
one of your key things is shifting that mindset with humor. So how, when I'm in a negative place, just got hit by a car, just got fired from a job, life's not working out for me, how can I switch into humor mode to break that cycle?
Question. Yeah, that's a good question. You can't immediately, when you get hit by a car, switch and see the humor in the situation like that. But as the healing begins, and again, I'll use my brother Michael as an example. He went from 168 pounds to 94 pounds or whatever. And in time, it was the sick humor about his condition that helped him to survive. It's a matter of, as you're healing, a lot of people stay bitter when they say you got hit by a car. A lot of people get bitter. That guy hit me. This shouldn't happen. Why is this happening? My wife was working. It's very hard to find that silver lining somewhere. But every now and then, God sends you something. And maybe it's you're looking at your kids playing, or one of your kids or some other kids does something or says something funny to the other kid. Now, if you're in that bitter state, or maybe you have the TV on and you're watching a sitcom, and it's funny, a part of you wants to laugh, but the bitter part's saying, my life is screwed. I can't get myself to laugh at that. And I get that. But the moment you allow yourself to laugh, you have to acknowledge that and say, well, I could still laugh. I could still laugh. You're sending a message to your subconscious that runs 97% of your life. Your subconscious is going to remind you the next time an opportunity to laugh occurs, take advantage of it. It'll nip that negative thought process in the bud. That negative thought process will come back again, but the more you allow yourself to laugh, the more you allow yourself to find the laughter in between the tough times, the easier laughter will be for you to acknowledge. I remember in 9/11, 3 days after 9/11, there was a woman interviewing the volunteers, the firemen, the police officers, and other volunteers. And it was such a subtle moment. I remember this distinctly. This woman had the microphone in her hand, and she's looking, and it was devastating. These men and women had soot all over them. One fireman, a big brawly guy, had a bandage around his head with a blood stain on it. His arm is in a sling. He's got soot all over his face, and this woman's trying to hold her emotions, this reporter, and said, how is it that you have the courage to go back in there and to look for survivors and dead and bodies? How can you have the courage to go back in there and do this? You're exhausted. He goes up to her. He grabs the microphone very politely from her, and he says, 2 things you need to know, in a very New York, with a New York attitude. I'm a fireman, and I'm from New York. Everyone started laughing and applauding. Now, Henry, that laughter lasted maybe not even 5 seconds. But here's my point. Sometimes a couple of seconds is all you need to catch your second wind.
That's it.
Sometimes a couple of seconds is all you need to get back on the horse again and get back and do what needs to be done. Laughter gives you those few seconds over and over and over and over again. The more you use it, the more it becomes a part of who you are. Everyone has a humor being within them. Your humor being is of your higher nature, the part of you that always brings out the best in you when times get tough. What your humor being can give you more than anything else is peace of mind and emotional stability. And that's what we need. We need emotional stability. Laughter is the pit stop in the rat race of life, in that it gives you enough emotional fuel and repairs to get back into the race again. But the proficiency by which we allow ourselves to laugh comes from what I call your humor being. And we all have one. Everyone has one. I knew Christopher Reeve 5 months before he passed away. Look at his book, Nothing's Impossible. Mm-hmm. The thing that helped him to do what he did in those last 9 years of his life in that condition falls nothing short of miraculous. And he attributes one of the main things that helped him to do that was his sense of humor. His sense of humor. In his book, Nothing's Impossible, the second chapter is called Humor, the longest chapter in the book, where he claims that humor was the thing that helped him to bounce back out of the numb zone, which is below the negative zone. The numb zone is you don't feel anything.
I don't feel it. Yep.
And he even has his quote it blew me away when he said this. My life isn't what I thought it would be, but there is joy, there is love, and there is laughter. He saw my presentation at the San Diego Convention Center in front of 6,000 people. I went on before him. Dana Reeve approached me and gave me a big hug in front of everyone. Dead center, 6,000 people are looking at Dana Reeve, hugging me and crying. Chris would like to meet you, because he loved what I said about humor and about finding the gratitude no matter how devastating your life is. And I spent significant time with him talking, and it just blew me away. That's why Robin Williams, who was his best friend, was there every single day until he was able to be released from the hospital. Because Robin Williams was making everyone laugh. It was his best friend. They went to Juilliard school together. They graduated together. So I've been blessed by meeting these people who overcame adversity, and at the top of the list was their humor being.
Yeah.
And when I say what he accomplished in those last 9 years in that condition, the only parts of his body that he could move were his lips, his eyes, and his eyebrows. That's it. He traveled the world. He did more in those last 9 years in that condition than most people that I know, and I know a lot of people, could accomplish in a lifetime. And he did it in that condition. Now, you might say, well, some people listen, well, he passed away 5 years later. But that's not the point. The point is what you do with your life and the time that's allotted you.
Yeah.
No one knows when we're going to leave. He took advantage of what he had.
Absolutely.
And humor was one of the points that helped him to prevail.
And then you see on the flip side of that, people who are very successful, who have made it, who are at the top of their field, even monetarily, professionally, movie stars, professionals, who don't have that sense of humor, who don't have that attitude, and walk around miserable. You know, they've got millions of dollars in the bank thinking that's going to bring happiness, and it doesn't.
Well, no, because money doesn't bring happiness. In my view, the goal, whatever it may be, even if you get it, is just a gift. The destination is just a gift. It's the journey towards the goal is what makes the difference. It's that journey. That should be your number one goal. When someone's asking you, what's your goal in life? My goal is to enjoy the journey, to experience the journey, because that's where your life unfolds. The journey is when you're sending a message, not only to yourself, but to the entire universe and to God, that you are willing and able to meet any challenge head on. That's what's important. I mean it. I mean, because people are saying unconsciously, I'll be happy when I achieve my status. I'll be happy when I'm a millionaire. I'll be happy. I've seen comedians do it. They started out in this business loving it. I'm making people laugh. And that's what they should have primarily focused on. But then all of a sudden this mindset, well, I'll be happy when I start headlining. And all of a sudden, a couple of years go by, they start headlining. Well, this isn't doing it. I'll be happy when I get an HBO special. Well, I'll be happy when I get a sitcom. The whole time they're putting their happiness on hold. Putting it on hold. And not realizing they should have been enjoying the entire process. The United States Constitution says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think it should read life, liberty, and happiness of the pursuit. That's what it should read. You should be making a conscious choice to enjoy yourself during the process. And if you don't, you're ripping yourself off. I speak to clients. Not too long ago, I spoke for high-end CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. And when I said this to them, you could hear a pin drop. Some of them were doing this because I was talking about happiness. That was the reason why I was there. And my bottom line, I wrapped it up with this. I said, I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you make. And I'm walking up and down the aisle as I'm talking to them. This took a lot of balls. I said, everyone could look at you as the ultimate success story. And I'm pointing at them. But here's the bottom line. And then I went up front in the room and I looked at them. I said, now look at me. Here's the bottom line. And only you know this. If you're not happy, you're not successful. If you're having a tough time enjoying yourself during the process of whatever it is that you are trying to achieve, you are ripping yourself off. And trust me, there are enough people out there willing to do that for you. And I said, you've been a great audience. Thank you very much. And they were just like, whoa, whoa. People don't want to hear the hard truth. I know because I've been there. Everything I've said to you in the time that we've been here, I learned the hard way. Everything. And I don't regret it because if I didn't, that's why I was put on this planet. I believe it's God's way of saying you're going to go through shit before you're able to help to turn that shit into methane. I learned it the hard way. Ask Jeffrey. He'll tell you. Oh, yeah. There were times at the beginning of my speaking career, he was saying, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, I learned it the hard way. But the fact that I did, now I'm put in a position where I finally get it and I'm in a zone where I could help people to get from here to there by learning from my mistakes. I give them the blueprint to my success and happiness. I offer my common sense success strategies and shifting habits. I can't give yours. I can't give Jeffrey's. I can only give mine, what I know.
That's it.
But what I know is I messed up a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes. And someone said to me a while ago, well, now that you made it, don't you have any regrets that what if I could have or should have made it 40 years ago? I said, no. And they said, how could that be? I said, because when you finally get it, I said, I'm 72 years old now. When you finally get it, you're so empowered, and empowerment could only be felt in the moment. My mindset doesn't even consider going back in the past and saying I should have. I stopped shitting on myself a couple of years ago. You don't even think about that because you're so in tune with who you are in the present. You don't think about regrets in the past, and you don't have any fear about the future. You're living in the moment.
That's it. Yeah, I have a whole speech that I give that's entitled What Not to Do. And it's just a whole list. I go through a whole bunch of like, here it is.
Yeah.
Lay it out to you on a silver platter.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's great. You learn so much from it.
You know what my new book is called?
What's that?
Becoming Steve Rizzo. And it's all these things that allowed me to become who I really am. You want to know what the number one thing is? Vulnerability. Not being afraid to express tears when I'm speaking to people, not afraid to tell people how I hurt.
Yeah. Not
afraid to tell someone that you're having an intimate relationship, what they really mean to you. This is what you mean to me. I'm going to be real vulnerable now. I was with someone not too long ago. It's in the top 5 experiences I've ever encountered about myself. I told her eloquently. I wish I would have recorded it. It was so healing and so empowering on what she meant to me and how I could relate to her and the whole thing. And I asked her, I said, what's going on in your mind? She goes, I'm terrified. That's what she said. And I said, well, maybe you are, because she had a hard time handling it. I said, but I know one thing. If this relationship doesn't work, at least I know you know exactly how I feel. I have no regrets at all. I said I would have regrets if it ended, and I say to myself, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I express myself? We do that with our children. We do that with our families. Parents do that when there's a tragedy in the family. You don't want to allow your children to be vulnerable, that you're hurting. Children need to know that a part of life is pain, suffering. And you have to acknowledge that. You don't wallow in it for your entire life. But that's the dichotomy of life.
That's it.
And children need to know that. Children need to know that you can cry, that you're human. I'm going to feel better. There will be happy times in between these tears, but your father's gone now. And I'm by myself now. Let them know I love you, but you need to know that mom is going to have some difficulties and I'm going to need you to help me. What is wrong with that? What is this macho thing that we've all have learned to adhere to?
Right.
What act like a man. What the fuck does that mean? What, suppress my feelings? As a matter of fact, allowing yourself to cry is the bravest thing that you can do. Think about it. You're holding back something that you don't want to do because when you do, you're facing intense pain. Now you're admitting to yourself, to the very core of who you are, that you're hurting and you may not be able to deal with it.
That's it. So that is right in line with my what not to do speech. The first little bit of it, I talk about, I'm 5-6 years old. My dad's a firefighter. I idolized my father. My father was a god to me. He was incredible. And so my mom got black canvas and sewed with a pattern, sewed a firefighter suit for me. And it had the reflective red stripes on the wrists, and I got an old helmet, and Dad brought home one of the discontinued face masks, and I took 2 Coke bottles and glued them together and put straps on them and made a respirator backpack, and I was the coolest kid in town because I had my firefighter suit. Cool. Well, wow. I messed up. I don't know what I did. I don't even remember, but I was offered a choice by my parents. Give them the firefighter suit for a week or get a spanking. And I was like, okay, here you go. Have my suit. 15, 20 minutes later, I'm looking around like, you know what? A spanking would be over with by now. Give me the spanking. Can I have it, please?
Wow.
And they looked at me and said, no, you made your choice. Now you live with it.
Yeah.
And so the moral of this story is, the point that I bring up is, never sacrifice something precious to avoid temporary pain.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well said. Oh, yeah. Because that word precious in itself is the most important thing to your heart and soul. That's what precious is. Something that can affect you in a very profound way. Why would you want to give that up? And for anyone that's listening right now, whatever it may be, precious, a significant other, your job, your health, I don't know what it is, your kids, acknowledge it, feel it. Let the person know. Let yourself know.
That's it. Yeah, that's how a 6-year-old kid with a firefighter suit changed my life.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I like that.
Right? Well, we never made it out of the lightning round. We got stuck in our first lightning round 6 questions.
We'll do this
has
again
been an incredible
conversation. No, thank you. Let's do it again.
The last question of the lightning round that lasted 45 minutes is, and this is a great way to close out, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Whenever you need help, whether it's building your career, you're emotionally distraught, you feel you're on the verge of losing your mind, never, ever be afraid to ask for help. Ever. And I don't care who you are. You all have that at least one person in your life that you can turn to. And even if it means you're being incredibly vulnerable, never, ever hold back on asking for help, because it'll be the worst thing you can do for yourself. Even something simple. People have asked me, what's the number one thing that you attribute your success to? Without missing a beat, I said I was never afraid to ask people for help. Jeffrey Gitomer is right at the top of the list. Right at the top of the list. I didn't even know him, and I was asking. He saw me doing stand-up. We became friends that way. You know that story.
Right.
And then someone said to me when I wanted to get to the speaking business, you need a website. I said, well, who do I go to? And I would ask people at the National Speakers Association, who's the best person that could create a website? They would guide me to that person. And I would ask them, can you help me? I asked Jeffrey, how do I create a business? I didn't know how to create a business. He invited me to his place for days, showed me how he ran his business. Never asked for anything. Never be afraid to ask. Well, if someone says, no, I can't help you, just say, okay, go to the next person.
Absolutely. And you look at the people who are really successful in life, who are enjoying the journey, and every single one of them talks about their mentors and the people who were on that path before them that helped them along the way.
Yeah.
You talk about Jeffrey. Jeffrey talks about Harvey McKay and Wyatt Woodsmall and the other folks who have mentored and walked alongside him. Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
Talked about his relationship with Earl Schoaf. Like, all these people have somebody that they're working with and are mentoring. And
But Jeffrey was always there. He went beyond.
yeah.
When my brother Michael passed away, and he heard me tell my brother Michael's story. He's spoken at events with me. And when he found out my brother died, I told you this at the last Jeffrey thing. I'm at the funeral. I'm at the wake services. My brother's laid out in his dress blues, his Marine Corps uniform. His medals are pinned all over him. And I'm about to lose it. And through the crowd, I see Jeffrey Gitomer walking through the crowd. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And of course, I got very emotional. I put my arms around him. He looked at me and said, Stevie, that's what friends do. That's what friends do. And everyone heard him. And that's one of my best sayings now when I do something for someone. Steve, how are you doing this? That's what friends do. And not only did he do that, he flew. He had a 9 a.m. meeting back in Charlotte. He flew from Charlotte to JFK, got into his hotel, called an Uber. It took him 2.5 hours to get to the funeral home on Long Island. 2.5 hours. He stayed the entire time, took an Uber back. He probably got to his hotel at 2 in the morning, had to get up at 3 to catch a 6 a.m. flight.
Right.
And that's Jeffrey. When my book, Get Your Shift Together, was coming out, and it was taken by McGraw-Hill, he went to McGraw-Hill and told him how to promote my book, Get Your Shift Together. They loved him. They wanted him to sign with their books.
Right. Yeah. Those friends who will always be there mean the world to you. And you can easily, as somebody listening to this, you can find those friends in your life and hold on to them. And you can also remember to be one of those friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to tell you something. I love the way you run the podcast. I love how you started with those. You made me feel so comfortable. What's your best song? What's your best group? That is an incredible way to start. So I suggest you keep doing that.
The one thing I did want to give you the opportunity to is to mention Conversations with Bob, if you wanted to put that out there.
You can get it on Amazon. It's getting great reviews. It's the best thing I ever did in my life. It's the reason I was put on this planet. It's a dialogue between two characters, Bob and Bernie. Bernie resides in the negative zone where challenges get blown out of proportion, problems turn into emotional havoc, and everyone on this planet, no one is exempt, experiences Bernie's negative ways and emotions throughout various stages of their lives. But then you have Bob, good old Bob to the rescue. Bob is of your higher nature, your true self, your authentic self. Folks, I'll give you a hint. Bob is God. Okay, Bob is God. And he has the solutions to Bernie's problems and answers to all of his questions. And like I said, it's a dialogue. It's a funny book. It's very profound. And if you feel that your life isn't working on any level or needs to be tweaked on any level, personally and professionally, have no fear. Bob is here, and my promise to you. If you embrace the common sense success strategies and shifting habits that are revealed throughout the book, you will realize how much power you have over every aspect of your life.
Wow. Incredible read. It's a great book. Definitely recommend everybody go pick it up. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's everywhere. So go get it and enjoy it. And it will change your life. It's one of those books that you'll keep on your nightstand next to the bed.
Absolutely.
It's one of those that you don't forget about, and go back and pick it up and read another chapter again and like, oh wow, you'll kick catch something new every time you pick it up and get new insights.
Well, that's
so
what everybody
it's one
does.
of those things.
People keep it on their nightstand. And it's got a beautiful cover. I wish I had a copy of it. Well, I don't. It's got a beautiful cover. What people do after they read it, they keep it on their nightstand, and every morning when they wake up and before they go to bed, they'll just look at the high points to remember. And, they'll go to sleep with those thoughts. And by the way, you can get it on my website, steverizzo.com, or you can go to yourinnerbob.com. Yourinnerbob.com. You can get, there's like 5 excerpts from different chapters, and there are Word According to Bob videos that are underneath that talk about the lessons that are in the book. So, Henry, I appreciate your time. Let's do this again sometime. And if you need me for anything, ask Jeffrey Gittimer. No. No, if you need me for anything, I'm here for you, man. Love what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for your time today. And everybody, go check out Steve's website and his book. I'll have a link in the show notes for the episode so you can find exactly where to go. Thanks so much, Steve.
You take care, bud.
Did you like what you heard on today's podcast? If so, do me a quick favor and hit the like and subscribe button. That way you'll stay updated on all the new content that I publish. Also, visit me on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and tell me what you want to hear more about. I love to hear your comments. That way I can continue to produce content that you love and enjoy. You can also check out my website, henrybeeman.com.